calculators. My talk sort of fits in the middle. So what people did with calculators, or tried to do with calculators. And this started, I will start with a little motivation, so why I did it, and which after 5 years is a good question, and I'm still doing it. Then I will show some examples, what's out there, so that you can go out and find your own, the history of the calculator which you find interesting. And I will show some databases, and we will test drive some databases so that you can sort of see what is out there. And I found that the internet provides endless amusement. And then of course there are questions and answers. There's one document on your USB drive, which is this calculator bibliography. This is a PDF document with 260 something pages. So there you got all the references in there, and any correction. I'm most happy for any corrections and whatever you might have. So it's still booting, so see if it can happen. So otherwise I will just wing it. There's also on the thumb drive a Word document of 5 pages where you have all the links and everything, so that you can play around. So you don't have to take down any. If you're interested in something, you don't have to jot down things. And okay, so we went through this. So motivation, talk about bibliography, internet sources for books and reports, internet for articles, and what's next. So this is something from Detroit. I picked up on Thursday at the fantastic Detroit Art Museum. There was a function by the US Patent Office, and a friend of mine sneaked over across the road to have a look at these fantastic murals by Diego Rivera. And in the one corner I found this. Why is this man so unhappy? Well, look at his right hand, what he got there. It's a slide rule. So this was painted, by the way, I encourage you to check out the story of this painted murals there. It's a fascinating story. And when you're in Detroit, by all means go there. So it's a huge mural in a big hall with depicting the sort of the drudgery of industrial factories in
all 4 sides of the room.
And 4 sides of the room, up there is all of allegorical stuff, and so they're producing chemical weapons. One point, those guys so look like somebody from The Simpsons, all green, and so. But I like the guy here in the when he comes on the left-hand side with the slides rule. So this was sort of what Palmer referred to, the before calculators, and then you go, what happened? Calculators. Look at this. He looks much happier. and think about Eugene, sort of what happens when sort of the next slide, sort of.
How many people in the room do not know who that is?
Oh, this Henry. Sorry. Yes. This Henry Horn. Everybody knows. It's the uncle of Joe Horn and Jim Horn, and he was the editor of the Keynotes, and well-loved figure in the thing. This was from his last issue of Keynotes.
Volume 8, number 2.
Exactly, and this is so. This was a scourged '97 or something, and there are all kinds of stories to that. So the thing is, because I needed somebody who has smiled and had a calculator in hand, so I remembered Henry Horn with that. So I was interested. So between this fella and this fella and this fella, so there must be a reason for it. So people probably could do more with calculators than with slide rules.
You know, the other person's a Henry also. That was supposed to depict Henry Ford.
Yeah, when you come, he was on the right one. He was the sponsor of all that, and
it's actually his son Edsel that brought in Diego Rivera.
Famed for the car.
Go ahead, I'm sorry.
There's even another calculating machine which I didn't know was a button, sort of mechanical calculator. So it was a bit like the device Palmer showed. There's another one, but I didn't take a photo of that one, but because I wanted this comparison with Henry. So documentation of calculator history. Hardware and manuals, that's well catered for with the HP Museum, Jörg Werner's and Bill Hicks Museum. For journals, we got Jake's DVDs and Warren Furlow's site. So we got all kind of, the PPC is out there, and there's the successor of PPC, and the TI stuff is out there. We got programs on the HP Museum side. We got programs on Warren Furlow's side. But one thing is missing is sort of what people did in books, report articles, sort of outside the HP user library outside the crowd we have here. So people in academia, people in the military, people in government, everybody is brother, did something with calculators, and that's not recorded in one of those three items. And that was the intention when I started with this bibliography. I wanted to know what books are out there because I wanted to buy some of those, and I was sort of trawling the net to find them. And so at one point I was sitting at Linz Airport in Austria for 5 hours. Linz Airport is about the size of this room, including the runway. Actually, this is from taxi to seat in an airplane, less than 10 minutes with a long queue at the gate, no problem. Linz Airport, highly recommended. So you can go to So I was sitting there and so I had the Jake's DVD there, and I was trawling the PPC, the Hpcalc catalogs, and found about 200 books these 5 hours. So that was the start of all that.
That must have been Dave's disc. I don't have any HpCalc catalogs in mine.
Oh, right. It wasn't you're right. It was Dave's disc. Yeah, sorry. Thank you. So I found about 200 references for books. So and then it took me probably a year and a half to rack that up to 1,000 using databases of libraries. And I showed this first in 2008 in Corvallis, sort of what was out there, and there's a data file article on that one too. During this search, I found a lot of articles, reference reports, which are not exactly books, so I left them out because I said, well, if I put them in there, sort of, I will never get it completed. So I restricted myself to books. But after I noticed that there was sort of saturation, I didn't find any new books, at least in German, French, and English. There must be tons of books out of that in other languages. But so I thought, well, I might as well put in these reports in there. And then I opened a Pandora's box because I found zillion of references. And now I got 3,000 plus, and probably thousands of other references are missing. And so at HHC 2030 probably will be completed. So what's out there? Why I'm doing it? Because it's fun. You find all kind of weird things out there. And I just yesterday on the plane I picked up some titles I like. Projection of kettle herd composition using a programmable calculator. I'm quite positive that none of you guys is actively involved in kettle herd composition calculations, but it's just fun to have a look at these things, what people did. This is more interesting, cryptography. A lot of calculus were used in cryptography. You get some serious surveying problem, inverse problem and reference ellipsoids. It's a geodesic problem. This is the title of Gene's books, Quantitative Analysis for Business. It's in the reference. So business people used calculators. You get papers catering to the educational sector, where sort of how to teach calculus to students. This is for the last 15, 20 years the hottest topic in publication, because nobody uses calculators for programming fast Fourier transformation. It's all about how to teach students. So you get all kind of reports and tests and statistical material, what calculator is doing best. Your question?
Yeah, and on that topic?
Oh, I'll show you a database where you get a sort of...
Well, no, I'm just wondering, you just have all these things listed.
Yeah.
But you can do some searching?
Yeah, sure. I'll show the database where you can do all kind of stuff with it.
Because you said that's a substantial number of titles on that subject.
Yeah.
And I have the personal knowledge of the author of one of those books, McCarthy. Mm-hmm. And it's got a very colorful, strange history behind it. And I'd wonder...
McCarthy's book on, I think I saw a copy of this lying around, the calculator calculus.
Right.
That's a bona fide textbook, how to use calculus in calculus education. I'll show you a database, what's around most, you can see for yourself. For example, I found a doctoral thesis from East Germany. Somebody must have been desperate to get a PhD thesis. The title was, and I will sort of translate this freely, is performance evaluation of Libyan students using programmable calculators in East Germany. Why? I don't know why he chose Libyan students.
They were spying on them.
Well, I don't know. It's probably because Arab is read from right to the left. I have no clue.
It was a Stasi report. This guy.
Somebody-
Any other.
I have to go to the library. It's not on. This is not on the internet, fortunately. I have to go to the library, and I will get a copy at one HHC. I will just sort of present the finding and sort of what fascinating story behind these PhD theses.
Felix, there were more Libyans than any other in East European.
Pardon?
East Europe. They had more Libyans than anyone else because they were
Right.
after the oil.
Yeah.
So they had more Libyan students.
Yeah. East Germany was crawling with Libyans, so yeah. There was a lot of exchange, and I wonder where they are these days. But this is a different issue. So you did some good old chemical engineering. You got heat transfer problems and reactors, and you can do all kind of. You could control things. You could control the spectrometer with a programmable calculator. These are all nice applications. You could also do some reasonable stuff. For example, calculating or finding natural constants. So this is one of. Hold on. This was Mr. Feigenbaum discovering the Feigenbaum constant using an HP65. This story is told in the Chaos book by Gleich. So he was playing around with numbers. PCs in the 70s weren't around so much, and he sort of, by crunching numbers and writing programs, he discovered that whatever he did to certain nonlinear systems, he always arrived at this magical Feigenbaum number 4 point something, and published an article. And this is one of, well, it's a natural constant. You have got pi, you got e, and there are not too many natural constants around. And one was found with the 65. HP never exploited this fact that Mr. Feigenbaum, he's still around. He is at the East Coast somewhere teaching. And there's a published paper on that. And if somebody is interested, I have them all these papers I have in PDF form. I can hand them out. So you get some more stuff here. You got stress analysis, and you got all solar collectors in the 70s. So it's a hot topic now, and it was an interesting topic there. And then you get something like this. I don't know who can read Malay. So there's graphic and there's fungsi. That's something with function. So there is in Malaysia there was there was a conference, and people in Malaysia were publishing papers on HP48 and TIs, and all this is in Malay. So you find this on the internet, and it shows you that what people are doing with these machines, and this is all teaching related. So this is that's bad to read.
Just highlight it.
Yeah, hold on. I wanted to invoke the paper. This is all. I wonder why this doesn't work anymore.
Album 80 fire containment equation.
So it's a fire. I wanted to show the paper. It's a fire containment equations for pocket calculators. So it's the forest department does something for fire containment. And then you got a paper by the military, a nuclear blast program for mini calculators. So you find a lot of military reports on a database. And then you got something like maritime archaeology. I like that paper because of nice pictures, and there people were using calculators when they were sort of diving to get some shipwrecks, some maritime shipwrecks. And there's another fascinating story where somebody did something interesting with a calculator. It's somebody called Snyder. Mr. Snyder was a chemical engineer, had an illustrious career for 20 years, and then he was a fanatic in the field of map projections. Since his childhood days, he was fascinated by maps, and he got into the mathematics of maps, which is differential geometry. And there's a long-standing problem. He had a satellite take a picture of Earth. What kind of projections you need, because the satellite goes at very odd angles around the Earth, not around the equator, so it's got all kind of weird paths, especially with military satellites. You need a good projection to evaluate the pictures these satellites take. So you have to, if you look at the pictures, you have to put them on a projection, or if you want to compare them to maps, or you want to draw maps from these pictures, you need a projection for that. And these oblique angle map projections was intractable. So the Geological Survey put out a prize, and Mr. Schneider won the prize as a chemical engineer, and he worked with a calculator. Unfortunately, to my information, was a TI 59. But this is a serious problem. What people did with the it's a 120-page document showing the mathematics of this oblique map projection. It's fascinating stuff. It's really map projections is grand. It's great playing field for calculation. Yes?
When you're doing the nuclear blast calculation program, is the nuclear blast calculation program, is the mini calculator stored inside or outside the refrigerator?
That's a good question. I will show you the report because then you can see how it looks like.
The guys doing this work were at Zenrange, at least one of the groups, and they always said that the calculator will be the only thing that survives the blast because these were strong enough. The people using it obviously wouldn't, but the calculator would.
Stored in the refrigerator.
I'll show you.
Frozen calculator.
I want to, since you're asking.
Well, I suspect they put the program on the calculator because it was portable, so that it could be moved around.
Yeah, what I want to show you is how these things look like. Because, so this is a list of these 829 references. It's about 40. It's about 40 gig. There. So 16 pages, and this is what you get from the internet. They have one accession numbers. And then you get all kind of stems on this. So some of this you find some declassified information. So this is headquarters of the Strategic Air Command, Director of Aircraft Maintenance, and then so you have this scanned thing with sometimes handwritten annotations on it, and some good old programming. So this is what you find on the internet. I didn't bother to hack in this program, but it's sometimes interesting just to read how they pose the problem, how they set up the problem, because they had to set up the problem in a special way that it's actually workable with a calculator. And that's the fun bit. Because today with a computer or the supercomputer, you probably don't bother so much with defining the problem, but those guys have to think about to set up the problem in a way that it's solvable by a computer. So I can show you the paper by Feynman, not Feynman, Feigenbaum. Where we go? Here, there we go. Feigenbaum. So that was in his Journal of Statistics papers from '78. He doesn't mention calculators, but in a later report, he was at Los Alamos at that time. So there's no program there, but this is the equation he did. It's just a sequence, a ratio of elements from a sequence taken to a limit, and then this number crops up, and you can have enough imagination to see that to calculate these elements from the sequence. That's what the calculator. This is a well-suited problem. You can take a very simple equation which sort of is chaotic. They are very simple equations for doing that. So in whatever you do, this number crops up. And this number crops up when you have when you look at turbulence and fluid dynamics and all the other systems which exhibit chaos. So you got. So what you also find is, I found this as a pep notation, I find this quite interesting. You find all the BITA magazines since the very first day. You find them on the internet, and this is invaluable prior art, of course.
Do you have BITA issue number 0?
I don't know if this is 0, but this is the first one I could find.
There is a BITA 0. I had a copy at one time.
So this is
number
one. This is number 1. Sorry to.
It came before that one. It was the
Issue
mock-up
number 0?
of the proposal to do the magazine, and it was issue 0.
So so Bob Patton wrote an article there. Sort of it's in there, and it's also in the bibliography. So what you got here is you got all sort of things what people did. So this is the distribution where these publications took place. So between 72 and say 83, 82, well, let's like 83, so this is 9 years. The bulk, probably 90% of all the or 80% of all the publication took place. And then you have this kind of, so you have this decay, and then here you got this fat tail, which sort of stays stagnant. And this is the guys who did nuclear burst, fast Fourier transformation, and all these calculations. And this fat tail almost exclusively is educational. So it really falls into two periods. That you have 9 years of really frantic publication and work done on calculators, which then sort of very rapidly sort of coincides with the sort of the PC. It's sort of the early 80s when the PC started. So this is the demise. So the guy with the slide rule sort of went out of business, and here the guy Henry Horn sort of went out of business with the calculators. But they have a long lives, and this is sort of the educational, sort of the guys who do the educational stuff. They keep this going, and this is mostly graphical. So the slide rise here is when the graphical calculators came, when they became calculators became attractive and complex for education. So this is what's happening here.
Now, do you consider a magazine a regular publication as one publication?
Pardon?
This is the number of publications.
This is an I would say this is an article or a report. That's one scores one. It's not a magazine sort of. There's a repository for a French calculator magazine. I went through that magazine and took all the individual articles out of that, taking as one. Each article is one reference.
The magazine itself didn't count.
No. So there are a couple in the handouts. There are a couple of references and for library databases. Library of Congress is great when you want to build bibliography data, but this is just a selection. When you can't download documents from the Library of Congress or from British Library or the German National Library, French National Library, you can't. So what is more interesting is this. You have a very good NASA server, which contains a lot of HP41 material, especially from the shuttle area. People were doing tons of stuff from the 41. So there's one thing by Mr. Schieser. Mr. Schieser was a very distinguished engineer at NASA. He did a few calculator reports out there. So that's well worth looking into. Just can show you. So I get this NASA report server. I mean, you just type in, say, calculators. You get 3,395 hits, and you can go for many screens to find stuff there. You can also, if you combine it with model numbers or something, or you can sort of search for a certain year, so to narrow down that number, or combine it with a subject you're interested in. You can find, but this gives you an idea sort of what's out there. Another database which is interesting is this educational database, ERIC. No relation to Eric Reckling probably, or Eric Smith, but it's the Education Resources Information Center. And sort of, I had asked for calculators, so came up with 1,480, and I have 200 of those in the bibliography list. So there's a long way of these articles to add. So this will keep me busy for a while. My wife lives in Frankfurt, so during the week I do have time for these sort of things occasionally. So that's okay. So, and my wife doesn't ask me why I'm actually doing this, because normally she doesn't see it. And this is the military database. It's by DTIC, information for the defense community. You can get a lot, for example, master theses from the Naval College in Monterey, where people like Rex Schutter and these people published many reports. Just to show you. We got 4,540 references, and some of them you can download as a PDF file. Sometimes only the bibliographic details. Okay. So this is just a few hints what you can do when you're looking for the history. There's a database for this gentleman keeps all the French calculator journals. This is the educational. There's one International Conference for Technology and Collegiate Mathematics. They publish huge volumes of conference proceedings. I haven't looked into those too closely. And if you're into books, I recommend this eurobuchen.com. It's a meta site for all antiquarian booksellers. You can do excellent price comparisons. So when all this stuff which is there on the table, you can buy for probably $5 a piece. And this is the site I go to when I want to buy one of these books. It's very handy. You can order worldwide, and you can just compare who has the best prices. So I'm not getting into. These are just general databases on the internet which are free. For example, Google Books has a lot of stuff there. Scholar Google has a lot of scientific articles. When you type in calculator, you're swamped with stuff. These are interest also for your professional interest. These sites are interesting. So what next? Lots of teaching references will be added over the next month when I get to that. For some reasons, I feel that the reference is lacking electrical engineering, civil engineering, and finance references. It certainly does lack French, Spanish, Russian, Malay, Farsi, Hindi, Tamil, whatever the references, because I don't speak these languages. So there must be material out there which is in those languages, which is not in there. And what I want to do is over time is we'll find the opportunity. I will find missing gaps. There's a number missing here or a page number missing there, but this is not all very hard on my project. Send me the data. You don't have to send me PDF files. I just want to know what is out there. Because, for example, these old electronic sales journals are not available in the library. They're not available on their archives of these journals. So I think I'm missing out a lot of that stuff. So that's what it is. So in 5 years, I'll report about the progress. Thank you for your time. And this is my email address. So it's all in the handout. You don't have to write that down. If you have something to contribute, I'm most happy to include you in the list of people who helped me. There are a number of like Richard and Bill and Jeremy Smith and a lot of Eric and now Warren. Warren has some great reports on his site, so I included that in the reference. So thank you very much for feeding me. Thank you.
Thank you.